Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take those really complex topics, sift through piles of research, and boil it all down into the kind of knowledge you can actually use.
That's the goal.
And our mission today, it's pretty specific. We're looking at those of you with really solid advanced English skills, C1, maybe C2 level. Your grammar is probably second nature by now.
Right.
But we want to add that layer, that critical upgrade that, let's be honest, most language courses just skip.
Yeah, they often do. And that upgrade is all about mastering cultural intelligence, CQ, as it's often called.
CQ, okay.
And it's crucial because a lot of advanced speakers, they hit this kind of ceiling.
Right.
They realize, okay, I know the past perfect continuous, but that knowledge isn't actually enough to, say, close a deal or build those really strong working relationships or, lead a team that's maybe diverse.
Right, the real world stuff.
Exactly. So if you're looking to move beyond just using English correctly, if you want to be genuinely effective, memorable, someone who builds trust easily in pretty much any professional setting, well, CQ is the next step. You could almost say it's non-negotiable.
It sounds like the missing piece of the puzzle.
It really is. It's kind of the framework for decoding how humans interact beyond just the words themselves.
Okay. So we've gone through a lot of material from experts in advanced communication to tackle this exact challenge. And the research, it really backs us up. Once you hit C1, C2, the purely language challenges like verb forms, phrasal verbs, they're mostly sorted out.
For the most part, yes.
But the human side, the social challenges, the things that really determine if you succeed in those high-stakes situations, those are still there.
Absolutely. They become the main focus.
So what we're aiming to give you today is a kind of shortcut, a way to understand those subtle, complex nuances in communication. So you can use English not just correctly, which you probably already do, but appropriately, perfectly appropriately for that specific moment, that specific audience.
Exactly. So our mission for you, the advanced learner listening right now, is really to elevate how you connect those dots. Between the language itself, the structure, and the social context it's happening in.
Connecting the dots. I like that.
Because that ability, that connection, that's what guarantees you can build credibility, build rapport almost instantly. Doesn't matter if you're in a global board meeting, giving a critical presentation, or, navigating a tricky negotiation.
So it's not just a nice-to-have skill.
No, not at this level.
Yeah.
For the advanced speaker, cultural intelligence isn't a bonus skill. It's more like the core operating system for communicating globally.
Okay, let's dig into that, this transition phase, because we see it right. Learners hit C1, they feel pretty confident with the language itself, but then frustration creeps in because sometimes their message doesn't quite land or they just don't build that connection they were expecting.
Right. When you were, say, at B2 level, your whole focus was probably mastering structures, getting more vocabulary.
Filling the gaps.
Exactly. But the material we looked at shows that at C1 and C2, the whole game shifts. It's less about the mechanics of the language itself and much more about the dynamics of people.
People, values, norms, expectations.
Precisely. You're moving into understanding shared values, expected social norms, all those unspoken expectations that float around in any interaction.
That's a huge shift.
It's the definitive strategic shift.
Yeah.
Because think about it. At the advanced level, you're not just, ordering a coffee anymore.
Right. Or talking about your holiday.
Exactly. You're involved in high-stakes stuff. You might be analyzing complex technical specs, negotiating contracts, working with teams across different time zones, doing strategic interviews where your credibility is absolutely on the line.
Okay.
And in those settings, grammatical perfection, that's just the entry ticket. It's the baseline.
So what really matters then?
What matters is knowing how to do things like respectfully disagree without wrecking the relationship, or how to invite input from someone more junior in a way that genuinely makes them feel valued, makes them feel heard. That's the advanced game.
And this is where the danger zone is, right? This is where it gets really interesting, I think. The risk of being technically correct, but culturally off.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge pitfall.
You can construct this perfect sentence, grammatically flawless, great vocabulary, but if the tone, or just the way you frame it, clashes with the cultural norms of the person you're talking to, the whole message can just fall flat. Or worse, actually cause offense.
And that failure is often subtle. It's not like you use the wrong verb tense, but the impact on rapport, on trust, it can be devastating.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Let's take a simple goal. Efficiency. You need a report, and you need it quickly.
Yeah.
A direct word-for-word translation of that need might sound like a pretty blunt command, like, get me that report now.
Right. Direct.
very direct. Now, in some professional cultures, maybe certain engineering teams in North America, for example, where the task often comes before the relationship, that directness might be valued. It's seen as efficient, clear, honest.
Okay, makes sense in that context.
But take that exact same direct command and use it in what we call a high-context culture, a culture that really prioritizes things like saving face, respecting hierarchy, keeping communication harmonious.
Right.
You could instantly come across as rude, aggressive even, maybe like a tyrant, or just completely unprofessional.
Wow. Even though the words were correct.
Exactly. And I think that's the trickiest part for C1 speakers, because technically do it now is perfect English grammar.
Yeah.
But are you saying it on a high-speed trading floor, or are you saying it in, say, a careful academic publishing house meeting? That phrase lands completely differently. The grammar is almost irrelevant at that point. It's all about the cultural impact.
So the grammar gets you in the door, but the cultural understanding is what lets you actually operate effectively inside.
Precisely. And the research really hammers this home. The crucial skill for the advanced speaker isn't just speaking the words, it's framing the message.
Framing, meaning how you package it.
Yeah, how you present it. Think about the difference between saying something that sounds like an ultimatum, this must be done by 5 p.m., no excuses,
Yeah.
versus proposing a more collaborative path.
Like what?
Like, okay, to meet the deadline, it'd be really helpful if we could aim to finalize this part by 5 p.m. How can I support you in making that happen?
Ah, okay. Big difference in tone.
Huge. The desired outcome, getting it done by 5 p.m., is identical,
Yeah.
but the framing, that determines whether you get a team member who feels stressed and resentful or one who feels supported and motivated.
So the advanced speaker is constantly doing these little calculations, these micro adjustments based on who they're talking to, what the situation is.
Always. Which brings us to another key point, context. We absolutely have to talk about the massive shifts in tone and register that happen even within cultures we often lump together as English speaking.
Right. It's not monolithic at all. This is where that idea of English is plural comes in, which I know we'll talk more about later.
We will. But just think about these 3 examples. They really highlight the difference. First, imagine a high-powered financial boardroom in New York.
Okay, I can picture it. Intense.
Right. Communication there is likely to be super fast-paced, probably very direct, relentlessly focused on results, the bottom line, and probably quite tolerant of assertive interruptions, maybe even aggressive ones. Speed often signals competence in that world.
Got it. Fast, direct results.
Now, contrast that with, say, a casual tea break in a London office, or maybe a negotiation between long-term partners in the UK.
Different vibe entirely.
Completely. The tone there is likely to involve way more understatement, a lot more hedging, softening language, and probably quite a bit of humor, often self-deprecating humor. It's used to build rapport, navigate tricky subjects.
So getting straight to the point without that social warm-up might seem
cold, or maybe even a big suspicious, like what's their angle?
Okay. And the third one?
Let's imagine a co-working space in Sydney, or maybe a team stand-up meeting in Australia.
Okay, relaxed.
Probably incredibly relaxed, yeah. Highly casual. You might hear regional slang, that sort of mateship language. Lots of humor, often used deliberately to show everyone's equal, approachable.
So using very formal language there would...
It would likely create distance. It can signal you're not really part of the team. You're holding yourself apart.
Wow. So New York, London, Sydney, all English-speaking, but wildly different communication styles needed.
Wildly different.
Yeah.
And an advanced speaker, someone operating with high CQ, needs to be able to pick up on all those cues, the speed, the vocabulary, the level of formality, almost instantly. And then, crucially, adjust their own register to fit in effectively.
That ability to calibrate, to adjust your tone, that sounds like the real C1, C2 superpower.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay, so that calibration, that adjustment, that's what CQ helps us do. But how do we actually build that skill? How do we stop just guessing and start developing this cultural intelligence muscle?
Right. Well, the good news is there's a framework. Synthesizing the research, we can break it down into 4 key pillars. These take it from being this kind of abstract idea into something actionable, something reliable you can work on.
Oh, framework. Okay. That's helpful because just telling someone be more culturally aware isn't very useful.
Exactly. This gives you a methodology. Instead of just vaguely trying to be polite, you have specific things to focus on, specific mental exercises.
All right, let's hear them. Pillar number 1.
Pillar 1 is observation.
Observation. Okay. Sounds simple enough.
It sounds simple, but it requires a shift in focus. You need to move way beyond just listening for the grammar you learned in class. It's about intensely focusing on what native or other advanced speakers actually do in real interactions.
What kinds of things should we be looking for?
The subtle stuff, the unspoken rules. So you need really active listening, active watching. Don't just listen for new words. Watch the social architecture of the conversation.
Social architecture, like what?
Like, how much body language are they using? Is it very expressive or quite minimal? Where do the pauses fall? Do people pause often to think, or is it more like rapid fire back and forth? How long are those pauses?
Okay, timing, pauses.
And critically, especially in professional settings, how is disagreement handled? Is it stated directly, immediately, or is it wrapped up in layers of politeness, approached really indirectly?
So it's not just about finding the right adjective anymore. It's about sensing the rhythm, the hidden rules of how people take turns, how they handle conflict.
Precisely. You're essentially becoming a cultural detective. You're looking for the unspoken rules of engagement in that specific context.
Okay, detective work. I like that. Pillar number 2.
Pillar 2 is adaptation.
Right. So you observe, then you adapt. Makes sense.
Yes, it's the necessary next step. You move from just watching to actively trying things out. But, and this is crucial, it has to be strategic adaptation.
What do you mean by strategic? Not just copying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Simple, blunt mimicry that can often backfire. It can make you sound inauthentic or even like you're making fun of people.
Oh, right. That's a danger.
Definitely. So strategic adaptation means you first need to understand the function of the behavior you observed. Why are people doing that in this particular environment? What purpose does it serve? Only then can you think about how to integrate something similar into your own style.
Okay, that raises a really important question, though. If you're deliberately trying to mirror how a group communicates, how do you avoid sounding fake? Or, like you said, maybe even like you're mocking them by adapting too much.
That's an excellent question, and it's something advanced learners really grapple with. The key is the difference between strategic adjustment and just wholesale imitation.
Okay.
Strategic adjustment means finding a way to achieve your communication goal in a way that resonates culturally while still being true to who you are.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you observe that a particular team, maybe in the UK or Australia, uses a lot of light, self-deprecating humor to ease tension or navigate disagreements.
Yeah.
It's a common tactic.
Right.
Your adaptation shouldn't be to suddenly try and become a stand-up comedian, if that's not you. That would feel forced.
Yeah, probably fall flat.
Probably. Instead, your strategic adjustment might be to experiment with using a similar light opening when bringing up a difficult point, or acknowledging a shared challenge with a simple, maybe mild joke. You're matching the tone and the intent, which is reducing tension, but you're doing it in a way that still feels authentic to you. You're not abandoning your personality.
I see. So it's about finding the overlap between their style and what feels comfortable for you.
Exactly. And it does take courage, because you are consciously stepping outside your usual linguistic habits, your comfort zone.
Which leads us nicely into pillar 3, maybe. You mentioned it's seen as the secret weapon.
It really is. Pillar 3 is empathy.
Empathy. Okay, we hear that word a lot, but how does it apply specifically to language and CQ?
What's fascinating here is how empathy forces us to shift our perspective on language. We stop seeing it just as a tool for expressing ourselves and start seeing it as a tool for connection.
Connecting with the other person.
That's the core of it. Empathy is the bedrock for building trust, especially across cultures. It forces you to move beyond that internal question we all have. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, the grammar check.
Right. And instead, ask the relational question. How might my words or my tone actually feel to the person receiving them? Given their cultural background, maybe their seniority, or just the context of this specific conversation.
Wow, okay, that's a deeper level of thinking.
It is. And that proactive consideration is what builds trust. If you know you're talking to someone from a culture that really values indirectness and preserving the relationship, then choosing the bluntest, most direct phrasing possible shows a lack of empathy. It ignores their established norms.
And the flip side is true too, right? If you're talking to someone, say, from Silicon Valley who's used to super clear, direct answers, and you're overly indirect, using loads of caveats, putting off decisions, they might see that as you being evasive or unsure, or maybe even not competent.
Precisely. So empathy acts like a filter. It helps you choose the right language for the right person in the right situation.
Okay. Observation, adaptation, empathy. What's the final pillar?
Pillar 4 brings us back to the language itself, but with a twist. It's language awareness.
Language awareness. Now, you mentioned earlier the sources emphasize this isn't just about brushing up on grammar rules.
Correct. This is about the nuances. It's about register formality levels. It's about fixed idioms. And especially, it's about connotations the emotional baggage words carry.
Connotations, the feelings words evoke.
Exactly. An advanced speaker has to understand that two words might have the exact same dictionary definition, but carry completely different emotional or social weight.
Okay, give us an example.
The research gives a perfect one. Think about the difference between the word cheap and the word affordable.
Okay, both mean low cost, but they feel different.
Very different. Why? Because cheap often instantly suggests something negative, doesn't it?
Yeah, like poor quality, maybe flimsy, corners were cut, or maybe the person buying it is stingy.
Right. If you describe your company's new product as cheap, you're probably undermining its value in the customer's eyes.
Okay, and affordable.
Affordable usually has a positive spin. It suggests good value, something accessible, maybe a smart buy, sensible financial choice.
So the basic fact, low cost is the same. But the feeling, the connotation, is completely opposite.
Completely. That one word choice can totally change how people see a product, a service, even a personal decision. Just like high-level branding built into the language itself.
Powerful.
It is. Now, let's take a slightly more complex social example. The difference between being seen as assertive versus being seen as pushy.
Ooh, yeah, that's a fine line sometimes.
Very fine line. Assertive is generally good, right?
Yeah.
Seen as a positive professional quality. You state your position clearly, respectfully, effectively.
Confident.
But pushy.
Yeah.
That's negative. It implies you're aggressive, you don't care about other people's boundaries, you're using too much force, maybe being annoying.
Okay, so if I want to make sure my point gets heard in a meeting, but I definitely don't want to be seen as pushy, what's the CQ mechanism? What's the actual linguistic difference that keeps me on the assertive side?
Great question. It often comes down to using softening language and thinking about pronouns.
Softening language, like hedging.
Exactly. And using we instead of I. A pushy speaker tends to use very definitive, singular language. I need this report by 5 p.m. I decided this is the way forward. I need you to do this. It frames everything as a unilateral demand from them.
Right, very I-focused.
Very I-focused. Now, the assertive speaker, the one with good CQ,
What do?
they use modals, those helping verbs and collective pronouns. So instead of I decided, it might be, I believe we could explore this option, perhaps.
Ah, we could.
Or instead of I need this by 5, it's how can we make sure this happens by 5 p.m.? What challenges might we run into?
Okay, still clear about the goal, but much more collaborative.
Exactly. They're still advocating for their position, but they use words like could, perhaps, seems, may, and especially we. This signals they're inviting input, or at least discussion, not just imposing their will. It's that kind of linguistic dexterity, that awareness of nuance that really marks out someone with high CQ.
That breakdown of assertive versus pushy is super helpful. That's exactly the kind of detail we need. Okay, so we have the framework, the 4 pillars. Now let's get really practical. Let's talk about the tactical toolkit. What specific language can people use to show this cultural sensitivity right away? Language that signals, okay, this person gets it. They're operating at that advanced C1, C2 level of respect.
Right. Let's start with some phrases designed specifically to invite dialogue, to ask for input. These are really powerful because they immediately signal something important. Intellectual humility.
Intellectual humility, meaning you don't pretend to have all the answers.
Exactly. They show you're open to learning. Did you actually value what other people think?
Yeah.
And in diverse global settings, that's a huge marker of C1, C2 communication maturity.
Yeah, I can see how that would build trust quickly, especially across cultures. Nobody likes a know-it-all.
Absolutely not. So a really great opener, especially if you're putting forward a new idea or maybe interpreting some complex data, is this phrase. I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
I'd love to hear your perspective. Simple, but effective.
Very. It instantly changes the dynamic from you just declaring something to creating a shared space for conversation. It shows respect for the other person's experience right from the start.
Okay, what's another one? You mentioned cross-cultural work often involves confusion about context.
Yes. So a brilliant phrase for tackling that head-on is, could you clarify how this works in your context?
Ooh, I like that. In your context.
Precisely. You're acknowledging up front that things might be different where they are. You're saying, I know my way isn't the only way, and I respect how you do things. It avoids that accidental offense that comes from just assuming everyone operates the same way you do.
That's really smart. And what about if someone says something interesting and you want more detail? but you don't want to sound like you're challenging them.
Great scenario. For that, try. That's an interesting angle. Could you expand on it?
Okay, interesting angle first.
Yes. You validate their contribution first. You affirm what they said before asking for more. It's much more effective, much more relationally intelligent than just saying, wait, I don't get it, which can easily sound like you're questioning their clarity or even their competence.
Right. These aren't just polite phrases. They're actively building the relationship while you get the information.
Exactly. They're proactive relationship builders.
Okay, so inviting input is key. What about the flip side? When you need to say something, but maybe you're not 100% sure, or you don't want to sound too forceful. This is where hedging comes in, right? Softening language.
Yes, and we need to spend some real time on this. The art of hedging is absolutely vital. It's crucial when you're uncertain about something or when you need to suggest a course of action without making it sound like a rigid command. It's all about managing expectations.
Why is managing expectations so important?
Because hedging is the advanced speaker's main tool for managing certainty, managing risk, and controlling tone. If you make overly strong, dogmatic statements, you shut down discussion. And worse, if you turn out to be wrong later, your credibility takes a massive hit.
Right. You look foolish or arrogant.
Exactly. Hedging gives you and the people you're talking to crucial room to maneuver, room for negotiation. It just significantly reduces social friction.
Okay. So, thinking about the actual language, we know basic hedges might be modal verbs like might or could. But how do C1, C2 speakers take it up a level? How do they hedge with more formality or maybe signal a bit more caution?
Good question. You move from just single words to more complex phrasing. So instead of stating a fact like, the market is moving this way, you signal it's your informed interpretation. You might use verbs about thinking like, I believe the data suggests the market may be moving, or it seems to me that we should consider.
Okay. Framing it as your perception.
Precisely. And for the most formal or cautious situations, you might use even more complex structures, maybe subordinate clauses. Something like, while there is a strong case for option A, it might be prudent to proceed cautiously with option B until we get more data.
Wow. That sounds very different from just saying, let's do option B. It sounds much more considered, more analytical.
Exactly. It's the difference between a simple suggestion and a sophisticated risk-aware analysis.
Okay, so what are some specific phrases listeners should try to adopt?
All right, let's get concrete. Instead of saying, this is the solution, which sounds final, try hedging with, it seems there might be.
It seems there might be.
Okay, this introduces your idea as a possibility, something reasoned, but it invites others to agree or maybe gently correct you. And it protects you if your assumption turns out wrong.
Makes sense. What about avoiding sounding like a boss giving orders?
Instead of, we must do this, which can sound autocratic, soften it too. We may want to
consider much more collaborative.
Yes, it shifted from being your command to a potential group decision. And one more. When you're making a suggestion, especially one that carries some weight, avoid the direct command structure, do X. Instead, try, perhaps we could, or even, would it be worth exploring?
Perhaps we could. Would it be worth exploring?
These little adjustments, they signal respect for hierarchy maybe, respect for group consensus, professional deference. They're absolutely essential components of CQ in action.
Okay, this is gold. Finally, in this section, let's touch on idioms. You mentioned they can be markers of advanced fluency, but not just any idioms, right? Specifically ones that reflect empathy and collaboration.
Exactly. These aren't just about sounding fancy. The right idioms act like shortcuts. They instantly signal that you understand the deeper relational context of the situation. They show you're thinking beyond just the task at hand and prioritizing the human element.
So which ones are particularly good for demonstrating empathy or that you're trying to understand someone else's viewpoint?
Well, the classic one, and the sources really recommend adopting it, is walk a mile in someone's shoes.
Ah, yes, walk a mile in their shoes. Very visual.
It immediately shows you're trying to see things from their perspective, prioritizing their experience. It's widely understood.
Okay. What about idioms for negotiation or finding agreement? We often need to talk about compromise without necessarily sounding weak.
Absolutely. For finding common ground, especially when there's a difference of opinion, the research points to bridge the gap.
Bridge the gap. I like that. It's about connection.
Exactly. It's a powerful metaphor. It signals you're actively looking for ways to connect, not just sticking to your own demands. And it works pretty much globally in English.
And if you're actually proposing a compromise?
Then a really useful one is meet halfway.
Meet halfway. Simple, direct, collaborative.
Right. All three of those, walk a mile, bridge the gap, meet halfway. They instantly frame the conversation as a shared effort. You're working towards a mutual goal, using language that feels natural and embedded in professional English culture.
One quick note of caution, though.
Yes, definitely. While these three are excellent, widely understood choices, the advanced speaker always needs to do a quick CQ check. Be careful with highly regional slang or very context-specific idioms if you're talking to a broad international audience. Stick to the ones like these that express collaboration and empathy in a way that's universally understood.
Okay, we've got the theory, the pillars, we've got the tools, the phrases, and idioms. Now, let's really see this cultural intelligence in action. Let's break down a specific scenario, one from the source material, that really shows the difference between being direct and, well, managing expectations culturally.
Right, this is a great example. It involves an American manager, let's call him Ben, and his British colleague, Clara. They're talking about a project report that seems to be running a bit late.
Okay, American manager, British colleague, potential for different styles there.
Definitely. So Ben, coming perhaps from a communication style that really prioritizes clarity and getting the task done, says something like, "Hey, Clara, the report's a bit behind schedule. Can you get it to me by Friday?"
Okay, pretty clear, direct, outcome-focused, no real fluff.
Exactly. Now let's look closely at Clara's response. Her response is really interesting because it's designed to do several things at once. Manage expectations, mitigate any anxiety Ben might have, but also show she's committed all through quite subtle language choices.
All right, what does she say?
She says something like, "Thanks for flagging that, Ben. I can certainly prioritize it and aim for Friday. If anything shifts, I'll give you a heads up midweek."
Okay, wow. There's a lot packed into that short response. Let's unpack it.
Let's do it. First, notice she starts with, "Thanks for flagging that."
Right, acknowledges his concern first, softens it.
Exactly. It's a relationship move right at the start.
Yeah.
Second, she uses the word prioritize. That's key. It signals commitment, importance. She's telling Ben, "I hear you, I understand this is important, and I will adjust my workload."
Okay, shows respect for the deadline.
Third, and this is maybe the most crucial part culturally, she says, "Aim for Friday."
Aim for, not I will get it to you by Friday.
Precisely. That aim for is the hedge. It signals her strong intention, her commitment, but it doesn't lock her into an absolute unbreakable promise. It subtly manages the risk for both of them.
So is she kind of implicitly apologizing for it being late already, or is she just communicating her plan moving forward? How do you read the intent there when the language is softened like that?
That's where the CQ analysis comes in. In this context, it's unlikely she's apologizing for a failure. She's communicating commitment while proactively managing future risk. In many communication cultures, including parts of the UK, promising something with 100% certainty, especially if there are variables involved, can actually be seen as a bit reckless or maybe naive.
Right, because things happen.
Things happen. So by saying aim for, she keeps the door slightly open if unforeseen issues arise. And this is the fourth mechanism she immediately follows up by offering a heads up.
I'll give you a heads up midweek. That sounds proactive.
It's totally proactive. Giving a heads up demonstrates respect for Ben's planning needs. She's essentially saying, "Don't worry, I won't leave you in the dark. If I sense there might be a problem hitting that Friday target, I will let you know well in advance, giving you time to adjust."
So it's a promise of communication management as much as task completion.
Beautifully put. That's exactly it. So the key takeaway from this little exchange is that an advanced speaker, someone with high CQ, needs to notice these subtle differences. The difference between "I will send it Friday" and "I will aim for Friday and give you a heads up." And then you need to be able to either match that style if it's appropriate, or at least understand it and adjust your own expectations and tone accordingly.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. It's about reading the subtext.
All right.
Moving from analyzing scenarios to direct action for our listeners, what practical strategies can people start using, like this week, to actively build their CQ? The research gave us some concrete exercises, right?
Yes, 4 specific actionable steps designed to engage those CQ pillars we talked about.
Let's hear them.
Okay, first, the observational exercise. Purposefully watch something like a panel discussion, maybe a recorded town hall meeting, or even a debate online, but make sure it features speakers from a country or culture significantly different from your own.
Okay, watch something different. Focus on.
Don't focus on the topic they're discussing. Focus entirely on the human dynamics. How are they interacting? Specifically, notice the tone. Notice how humor is used. Is it dry, sarcastic, physical, story-based? And pay close attention to interruption patterns.
Interruptions, okay.
Yeah? Are interruptions seen as rude, cutting people off? Or are they part of the normal flow, showing active engagement in a fast-paced discussion? Maybe even count how often people interrupt. And notice how they jump in. What words do they use to enter the conversation smoothly?
Okay, observation exercise. Got it. What's next?
Second, a writing exercise specifically designed to practice register adjusting your formality level.
How does that work?
Take a single, simple task, like writing an email to ask a senior colleague or stakeholder for an important resource. Now write 2 different emails for that same request.
2 emails. Okay.
One needs to be strictly formal, maintain professional distance, use very polite language, no contractions, right? I would not instead of I wouldn't. Keep it crisp and respectful.
Okay, formal version.
Then, write the second email as semi-formal. Maybe use contractions this time, perhaps a slightly more relaxed opening, like, hope you're having a good week. Use slightly less formal vocabulary, but still professional.
Ah, I see. So doing both versions forces you to consciously think about the specific language choices that create formality versus semi-formality.
Exactly. It makes register awareness a deliberate practice, not just an accident.
Smart. Third strategy.
Third is focused on language, but specifically on building that relational depth we talked about. Vocabulary expansion. Your task is to learn 3 new idioms this week, maybe the ones we discussed earlier, like walk a mile, bridge the gap, meet halfway, idioms that explicitly express empathy or collaboration.
Learn 3 new ones, but just memorizing isn't enough, right?
Absolutely not. That's the crucial step. Don't just memorize the definition. You have to practice actively integrating them into your own sentences, your own potential conversations, until using them feels natural, automatic. If you still have to pause and mentally translate before you use the idiom, you haven't truly mastered it yet.
Okay, practice until it's smooth. Final exercise.
The final one is auditory, moving beyond just words on a page. Shadowing listening. Find a podcast, a video clip, an audiobook, something where the speaker has an accent or a communication style that's noticeably different from what you usually listen to.
Okay, listen to something different. And shadowing means?
Shadowing means listening and repeating what they say, trying to mimic their sound. But here's the key for CQ. Don't just focus on getting the pronunciation right. Focus intensely on the other stuff. The timing, the pauses, where do they put them, the rhythm of their speech, the cadence of their humor, if they use it.
So the musicality of their speech.
Exactly. For instance, if you're shadowing a British speaker, maybe notice the rising intonation they might use on certain questions versus the flatter tone they might use for understatement. You're trying to absorb the delivery style, the rhythm, not just the individual words.
Okay, observe, write, expand vocabulary, shadow listen. Those are great, concrete actions.
And there's one more meta strategy that underpins all of this. Actively soliciting and, crucially, accepting feedback.
Ah, feedback. Always important, but sometimes hard to hear.
It can be. But if a native speaker or a colleague who's more culturally attuned in that specific environment gives you a hint, if they say something like, oh, that came across a bit strong, or maybe, we usually phrase it more like this.
Yeah.
You have to see those comments for what they are. Incredibly valuable gifts. They're not criticisms of your English ability. They are free, personalized CQ coaching, tailored exactly to the context you're in.
Wow, reframing feedback as a gift. I like that.
Embracing that feedback loop will accelerate your CQ mastery way faster than trying to decode all the unspoken rules entirely on your own.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked tactics, pillars, practical exercises, the importance of feedback. But it feels like ultimately getting really good at this C1, C2 level communication, the kind powered by CQ, requires something deeper, a fundamental shift in how you think about language itself.
You've hit the nail on the head. That is the essence of true advanced mastery. And it's a concept we really need to unpack fully.
Yeah.
You have to realize you're not just learning English as if it's this single monolithic thing.
Right. It's not just one thing.
No, you are learning and navigating Englishes, plural. You're dealing with global English, yes, but also countless regional variations, specialized industry jargons and registers, specific company cultures, national cultural expectations, all layered on top of each other, all at the same time.
Wow. Okay, Englishes, plural.
Plural. Think of the language itself, the grammar, the vocabulary, that's just the vehicle. But the culture, with all its unspoken rules and expectations, that's what's actually steering the vehicle. That's the driver.
So what does navigating Englishes actually look like for a professional day-to-day?
It means embracing linguistic fluidity. It means accepting that you might need to switch your communication style significantly, sometimes even within the same day or week.
Can you give an example?
Sure. On Monday morning, you might need to use a very high context, cautious, consensus-building register for contributing to an academic paper review with international collaborators.
Okay, formal, careful.
Then, Monday afternoon, you might be in a stand-up meeting with a tech startup team, where the communication is super direct, full of industry jargon, maybe even quite abrupt.
Right, totally different world.
And then Tuesday, you might need to draft a compliance report for a government agency, requiring incredibly precise, formal, almost legalese register.
London, Boston, Singapore.
Exactly. Your language needs to adapt instantly based on who you're talking to, where they're from, what the purpose of the communication is. You almost have to become a linguistic chameleon.
A chameleon. But you mentioned authenticity earlier. How do you do that without feeling fake?
That's the art. It's about being adaptable in an authentic, respectful way. It's not about changing your core personality. It's about choosing the most effective and respectful communication tools from your toolkit for each specific interaction. It signals your competence, your awareness, your respect for them.
Okay. And the payoff for developing this adaptability, this chameleon-like skill?
The reward is huge. You stop being seen as just, oh, that's Sarah. She speaks English really well. And you start being seen as, Sarah. She's a fantastic communicator. She really connects with people. That is a massive difference when it comes to professional growth, opportunities, leadership potential.
From good English speaker to great communicator.
Precisely. You become that person who can walk into almost any room, quickly pick up on the cultural vibe, the communication norms, and then subtly adjust your own delivery, your speed, your tone, maybe your use of humor or hedging, to make the other people feel comfortable.
Making them comfortable. That's key.
It's absolutely key. You make them feel understood, respected, heard.
And that ability to adapt to prioritize the listener's context and comfort. That's what makes you memorable, isn't it? Not just fluent.
That's exactly it. It's the difference between giving a presentation that's technically perfect but instantly forgotten.
Yeah, we've all seen those.
And giving one that actually builds real connection, real rapport, because the audience felt like you got them. You understood their world. That's the power of CQ.